Right. Okay. Well, my talk title is "Does a Buddhist Need a Personal Teacher?" So I want to talk about this area of the teacher. Um, in the process, I have been thinking, gosh, what would I have come to a talk with that title? Was I interested, in that? Anyway, thanks for coming. Well, I don't know, because it wasn't. It was a long time ago, and it's difficult to quite. But yeah, I did have that question. But I wanted to talk about this. This is in the series that we've got Essential Sangharakshita, because I feel tremendously grateful to Sangharakshita for many things, actually, but partly for his sort of guidance into this territory as to what it might mean, actually. That word personal teacher. What do we mean by that? What on earth are we talking about? Because depending on what we're talking about, I might not be interested, or I might be interested. See what I mean? The word covers quite a range, doesn't it? But the other reason I wanted to talk on this, why I chose this topic, is because it's Arta Priya's birthday today. Arta Priya is 69 today, so I thought, oh well, I should talk on this topic, shouldn't I? So Arta Priya is my preceptor and a friend. He ordained me 20 odd years ago. Yeah, and he's very much in my mind at the moment because he's found out at the beginning of this year that he's got cancer. Actually, it looks like it's years rather than months that he will be with us, which is great news. Yeah, but that was the other reason why I wanted to talk about this in appreciation for my teachers, Arta Priya Sangharakshita, amongst others. Yeah, but what do we mean? Actually, Sangharakshita gave a lecture back in 1970 called "Is a Guru Necessary?" So at that time, you needed a guru. It was a generally accepted thing in the hippie world who were coming to Buddhist events. It's not quite as sort of talked about as essential these days. So I didn't want to choose that title. It sounds rather sort of a bit sensational, doesn't it? The guru, perhaps a bit sort of glitzy. Yeah, so I just thought personal teacher might be a better title. So, but in that lecture, Sangharakshita starts off by talking about what a guru is not, or what a Buddhist teacher is not. And he says a guru is not the head of a religious organization. That's the first thing he says, that you might sort of think that you need to sort of find your way to the top of the organization, and there at the top of the organization is the guru. That's not what's being got at, actually, by this term. I'm not meaning that by this term personal teacher, nor is that what really is meant by guru. And furthermore, he says, surprise, surprise, he's not a teacher. So that gives me a problem. But in a way, that's one of the things I want to say, that actually we run out of terms in this area. We really do run out of terms in our culture. It's very difficult to actually convey quite what is meant by a guru or a personal teacher in the sense that I mean it. It's sort of a bit unknown, really, to our culture in its fullness. But there are sort of, we've all got experiences, positive experiences of teachers, and there's something that's shared or that overlaps with the term teacher. But anyway, yeah, he says it's not a teacher. So that is really interesting, isn't it? So he's saying that actually the guru isn't there to teach you things. It isn't simply there to give you some good information on Buddhism. That's what I thought I was going to, needed when I first came along. But that is sort of wrong-footed us there. I'll go into that a bit more. But yeah, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about merely sort of useful Buddhist information, Buddhist explanations, being able to digest the ideas of Buddhism from somebody. He says, actually, the guru is not a problem solver either. So you may have some sort of problem, some sort of spiritual problem, whether it be metaphysical, he says, or psychological. And you can kind of think, so this is particularly the case in India, was his experience, you sort of go to the teacher with a problem. Do listen to the lecture if you're interested in this area, because he gives a brilliant sort of parody in a way of how that can go wrong. The teacher sort of gets set up in a particular way such that you can never actually solve the problem, even though you're being presented with it. But he's saying, yeah, that the guru is not actually there to sort of solve our problems. In a way, he says our spiritual problems actually don't need sort of solving on their own level. So if you get into doing that as a guru, you go awry. And the last one, he says, is the guru's not a father figure in the sense of somebody who sort of takes responsibility for you prior to you being able to do that yourself. It's not a sort of father substitute. But he does say that the guru may act in all of these ways or through these ways. So the guru may teach you things about Buddhism, may actually step in, as it were, as a sort of a substitute father figure to help in the sort of psychological process of maturation on which spiritual maturation sort of rests. He may have a position in a religious organization, and he may be able to solve some of your, well, at least sort of help you with some of your problems, help you solve or resolve problems as well. So there we are. That I think that's sort of what we get with Sangharakshita is just this sort of very clear thinking, presumably partly on his own experience. He had a number of teachers, and he's really trying to get to the core of what is it that we're talking about when we use that term guru. I found that really, really helpful. So I was also sort of thinking back to when I first came along. What was I looking for in this area? Was I even looking for a teacher? Is it necessary? What's my title? Does a Buddhist need? Yeah, does a Buddhist need a personal teacher? Is that sort of essential? And I came along, I'd been reading about Buddhism, and I thought there is something to this. I can learn from this how to sort of live my life in a more from my values. I felt like I wasn't sort of managing to do that, and I wanted to do that more. And Buddhism proposed a path that I could walk, path of development, and I thought that is what I want in my life. But how do I know that is true? How do I know that that's actually a real thing that we can actually develop? And I thought, well, meditation is something that I can do. I can try it out and see, does it work? So that's what I wanted. I basically wanted instruction, someone to show me how to meditate so that I could find out for myself. And that is a very traditional sort of kind of in a way Buddhist position, that the Buddha would say, well, try this and find out for yourself. He'd sort of push you back on yourself. One way the teacher is talked about in early Buddhism is a doctor. So the Buddhist teacher is a doctor in the sense that the Buddhist teacher gives you instructions for you to follow, gives you a prescription, and then you actually take the pills yourself. So that was the kind of model that I was in, and it's a sound model. Interestingly, there's this list of different types of teachers: a teacher who's like a doctor, a teacher who is like a friend, a teacher who is like a father, and a teacher who is like a lover. Like, not is. Little detail there. Yeah, so it's very traditional. The thing is, though, the analogy sort of breaks down a little bit with a doctor, in that you can't really separate out the instruction from the teacher in Buddhism, in the sense that you follow those instructions to get somewhere, to change your consciousness. And the teacher is able to help you with that, if, or to the extent that they have done that themselves. So to a certain extent, the teacher is, it needs to sort of, needs to know the experience that the teacher's guiding the person towards. Yeah, so you can't really, in such a neat way, sort of separate out the teacher and the instruction. So it's not really like the doctor can just give you instructions separate from who they are. And that we kind of notice that, don't we, in if you're learning something like meditation. So little example from my life. I read about meditation in France. I was in France. I was learning French. I was 20. I was 19 actually, and I was reading about Buddhism, and it had a little in the back of the book how to do it, how to do the. So there I was in this this rented room up in the top of a sort of rented garret room, staring at the wall. Waiting for my mind to change. And I did that a number of times before I realized I am getting nowhere. I mean, you know, at a certain point, strange shapes started coming out of the wall, but that was as much as as much success as I seem to be having. So I realized I needed to meet people who are actually meditating. So much can be communicated in that, can't it? You just get into dialogue with someone who's meditating, and without even really realizing it, you're picking up they communicate their attitude to meditation. I don't know, but perhaps my attitude could have been kind of trying to get it all right, and you do this and then you do that in a sort of tick all the boxes kind of way. Just by coming into contact with other meditators, that attitude was just sort of eroded because of their attitude. You see what I mean? So in some ways, it's not literally that the doctor gives you instruction. It's something about who the doctor is. It's something about their state of being that enables them to sort of guide you towards it. So we can't really separate out the teaching from the teacher. Actually, that's the point. So in a way, to sort of sum this up, this brilliant aphorism that Sangharakshita came out with, that the Dharma is caught and not taught. Sort of going a little bit further with that, it's saying the Dharma is caught and not taught, in a way, yes, there is instruction, but we can only go so far. May even get lost and go awry if it's mere instruction, if it's mere ideas. We need to sort of catch the Dharma from people who are practicing the Dharma. It's a brilliant little aphorism, isn't it? So I thought it might be interesting, actually, just to explore this a bit, because you've got your experience of practicing meditation in the Dharma. So I thought maybe we could just explore this in our own experience, just for kind of 10 minutes. What's been your experience? Have you been taught, or have you caught it? What has enabled you to catch the Dharma, if that's what's happened? Yeah. So maybe we can just kind of turn into kind of 3s and 4s. Perhaps 4s is good, and just explore for ourselves, and then we'll come back together. I want to hear a bit more. So what do you reckon? Is it caught or taught? Caught. You thoroughly convinced?
Yep.
Yeah. Great, I can go home.
Well, I think a teacher is someone who inspires you to practice and to develop your practice. Yeah. So in that sense, you're catching.
Yeah.
Catching the Dharma from there.
Yeah, great. That's great. Anyone else?
Sowing a little seed. Somebody may be sowing a seed.
Right. Yeah. Well, the teacher is sowing a seed. Okay.
Or
in your mind.
teachers, yeah.
Teachers are sowing seeds in your mind. Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? Sometimes you don't notice, do you, when you've caught something? Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah,
it's I'm talking about getting that balance between quote unquote.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's not completely one or the other.
Oh yeah.
It's needing both, in fact.
Right, interesting. Yeah, good.
I see it more as energetically, so like I would use the word absorbed rather than caught.
Yeah.
And channeled rather than caught.
The teacher's channeling something.
Yeah, there's the guiding idea, there's the channeling of that energy, and then the kind of magnetism or whatever, the energetic field of
Of the teacher. Yeah, got you. Yeah.
Absorbing kind of thing, or sharing, or exchanging of energetic acceptance or embracing or respect, or and the feel, the sense and the feel of it rather than just the actual content.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very good. Yeah, Hriday Money, you've got.
My observation of our conversation is really focused, seems to be focused on the initial moment of caught or taught. But now hearing other people's contribution, I think we've got to get on to the subject of catching it again, over the years, another catch, another couple.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's important, isn't it? I mean, in a way, what this is kind of quietly saying is that the Dharma includes learning how to authentically relate to a teacher. That's part of it, isn't it? We can't actually avoid the teacher. There is no Buddhism without teacher, which I don't think I quite sort of clocked when I first came along to Buddhist class, but actually that's sort of the way the Dharma works. Well, I don't know what you make of that, but certainly when I first came along, there was a mixture of things. I was both really interested to learn, actually in a certain way, kind of really wanting a teacher in this, or a guru in this sort of full sense, and also kind of wanting to find out for myself. I'm going to do this myself. So, you know, that was quite sort of strong in me. So that's another area, isn't it? Isn't it, you know, it's like nobody else needs a teacher. Why do you know you're so you need a teacher? It's I don't follow anyone, but you're following someone. There's that sort of thing that goes on, isn't there? But just to put it provocatively, I would say that's not the case at all. I would say that actually we're all following other people. It's only that if you have a teacher, you've actually chosen who you're following. Just to put it provocatively, I think if we actually really look at how we live, you know, as a society, how much of that is sort of really one's individual choosing? We all end up sort of having the same hairstyles, and you know, is that really a choice? You know, we all say, well, I'm going to think this through for myself. Is that really, you know, we're all sort of championing the individual sort of thing, is that, you know, across society? That sort of sounds a little bit suspicious, doesn't it? It sounds a little bit like actually we're all following each other in some sort of way. So I would propose that actually influence is just part of human experience. But what you're doing with a teacher is that you're actually, at best, you could, of course, just sort of choose a teacher for the wrong sort of reasons, but you're actually getting conscious about your influences. Yeah. So just a bit of sort of a provocative way of thinking about that area. It's only really that you take agency over this area of influence if you choose a teacher. Otherwise, you're just going to be at the mercy of all sorts of influences from all sorts of people that you haven't chosen. So at the same time, I do think it's a bit of a new area for us as a culture, having a teacher. And here's one of Sangharakshita's teachers talking very movingly, but very, to us, strangely, about his guru. So Dada Rinpoche died in 1990, a Tibetan Tulku, one of Sangharakshita's closest teachers. My guru was very strict and used to scold us a lot. He used to beat me really severely, but as a result of this, I studied well. I didn't feel angry that he beat me, but I used to feel sad, thinking, why do I have to suffer so much? When he beat me, he would do it with a smile on his face and at the same time chant a traditional verse about skillful and unskillful action. Then he would explain to me what I had done wrong, why it was unskillful, and give me strong encouragement to get rid of the fault. So the papers would be round, wouldn't they? If that was the kind of teaching that, you know, we meant. So I think culturally, it is a question. How do we engage with this aspect of Buddhism authentically? We don't sort of sideline it and actually be Westerners and Buddhists sort of second. How do we actually sort of really take it on? But authentically, I couldn't get into, there's no way I could relate to a teacher in that sort of way. Just to say he was young at that point. So this is Tulku training, incredibly strict training from a very young age. So he wasn't a 20-year-old man getting kind of scolded and strongly beaten. But nonetheless, it depicts a culture of the teacher-disciple relationship, which we just, well, I don't know about you, but I just couldn't, you know, engage with that. So we need to find a kind of an authentic Western sort of Buddhist teacher-disciple relationship. We need to find our way into that. And how on earth do you go about that? I'm so glad that I wasn't left alone with that question, because I just would have gotten no with it. Yeah, so here's what Sangharakshita says a guru is. So he says that actually there's always less to say about positive qualities than, and therefore what a guru is, than what a guru isn't. So he says a guru essentially is someone who is on a higher level of consciousness than you, is more developed, is more alive, more aware than you. That's essentially what a guru is. It stands to reason, doesn't it, that if you're wanting to grow, then someone can only help you with that, instruct you in that, to the extent that they can draw you out of your lower level of consciousness into a higher, invite you out. So he says that's essentially what it is. Also, the guru is someone with whom you have regular contact. He said in the traditional model, it would be even daily. So you would live with your guru. That's the traditional model. He does talk about dreams, having sort of direct contact, but for most of us, it's going to be in person. And then he also says that the relationship with the guru consists in existential communication. Existential communication. What does that mean? So I thought I'd just read that out. Contact between the guru and disciple should be existential. That is, there should be real communication between them, not just the sharing of thoughts or ideas or feelings or experiences, even spiritual experiences, but communication of being, or if you like, action and interaction of being. The guru and the disciple need to be themselves as fully as possible in relation to each other. The guru's business is not to teach the disciple anything, but simply to be himself or herself in relation to the disciple. Nor, as a disciple, is it your business to learn. You simply have to expose yourself to the being and to the effect of the being of the guru, and at the same time be yourself in relation to him or her. So that's what he means by existential communication. It's interesting, isn't it? Really, really interesting. I mean, I suspect that that is fairly rare, actually, kind of relationship. Even in Triratna, I suspect that that's sort of what's depicted there, sort of being able to be yourself fully, and the guru being able to be themselves fully, and you being in regular contact. I suspect that that's relatively rare. So what Sangharakshita has further done is actually just encouraged a culture of friendship. It's like, I think that relationship that's depicted there is something that can arise out of a spiritually mature culture. And that spiritually mature culture is a culture of friendship, this kind of relationship that's mutual. It's not organizational. It's actually sort of personal, a personal relationship. It's not sort of functional, like the teacher kind of knowing this stuff and passing it down to you. It's kind of, yeah, it's mutual. It goes both ways. Yeah, it's not a father figure relationship. Actually, both parties are sort of fully responsible, able to fully take responsibility for themselves. And it's not necessarily a problem solving. You may not seem to get anything out of it in the first sort of instances. So that is kind of quite extraordinary, isn't it? Can anyone imagine engaging with that. But yeah, as I say, what Sangharakshita's done is he's encouraged friendship, and he's talked of friendship in terms of, this is quite traditional as well. He translates the term Kalyana Mitrata. Kalyana means beautiful, morally beautiful, auspicious. Mitrata means friendship. But he says, in a way, he broadens out the focus from this sort of one exclusive guru relationship by saying that actually friendship, spiritually vital friendship, existential communication can happen between peers, actually. And I find that's very much true. You know, my friends, I keep in regular contact with my peers, and they, you know, pick me up and prod me and encourage me and do all sorts of things. That definitely teachers, as it were, but it goes both ways. And then vertical friendship. He's talked of vertical friendship. So that's more like the guru. So he's encouraged a sort of breadth of engagement, and out of that, out of just engaging with friendship, engaging as a friend, something of this kind of relationship that Sangharakshita is evoking might emerge for some people more than for others. Maybe we don't all need that kind of intensive involvement, but I suspect we're all affected by those relationships that other people have. So that's what Sangharakshita's done. And I must admit, I feel hugely grateful for that, because I feel I can engage with that as a Westerner. It's challenging, of course, but I don't feel I could engage with that other model, and I wouldn't have known what to make of it if I'd gone along to a Buddhist movement and it was the teacher sits on a podium, and I wouldn't have quite had the perspicacity to say, hang on a minute, what is this all about? You know, what are the principles at play here, and does this work for me as a Westerner? I wouldn't have kind of been able to articulate that. So I feel tremendously grateful for that being sort of laid out in that way. But I just thought I'd stop at this stage just to see if there are any questions kind of bubbling up. Do feel that you can say, hang on a minute.
Why do you think the model of vertical friendship is quite a tricky one within the organisation? Because the whole idea of vertical relationship makes authenticity a little bit difficult sometimes to keep. I mean, you're, as the person lower down in the vertical relationship, you're conscious that you're kind of asking something of somebody, the other person, and they're conscious that they're supposed to play some role to teach you something that
indeed.
And I think that this unless you're actually living in community with somebody who's at that level, it's unlikely you'll really develop this kind of closeness that you talked about. I mean, you may do it, probably would do over time if you kept pursuing it. I think it would be hard for that to develop, sort of naturally develop.
I think that's true. I mean, I think something of it can start to happen on retreats. There's something about when all the hats are off and you're not trying to learn something and you're not trying to teach something. Something can pass between us. Just a phrase, I remember, it wasn't on retreat actually, but Sangharakshita was doing a book launch, and I went up, got my book signed, and he just said, yes, time well spent, I think. And I was like, oh my God, it sort of really hit me. That's all he said. There was probably nothing intentional in it, but I've remembered it because it really hit me and sort of upset my sense of what a spiritual teacher might be in a way that's difficult to sort of quite explain. But it was just an incidental, kind of inconsequential, throwaway sort of situation, and it really affected me. Yeah. but yeah, I think you're right. I think it is hard to develop that kind of relationship. But I think retreats can really help. Just being around each other in that sort of way, which is sort of like that's where communities have grown out of. Us just living together. Community is just a sort of a spin-off from retreats, really. Yeah. Any more crucial questions kind of coming up?
I guess there are similar kinds of relationships that aren't necessarily part of Buddhism.
Yeah.
Perhaps a sort of mentoring or not teaching.
Yeah, yeah.
We've sort of said it's not. But those kind of roles still exist outside. Like, perhaps you might say something about the differences or similarities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think all those relationships are kind of circumscribed in some sort of a way, aren't they? And that's why they're limited from in this sense, that actually if we play roles, we're not really going to find out. We're not really going to be able to get close enough to intimate what is your level of consciousness. I mean, how do you go about that? How do you go about that? Well, it's only through friendship, through spending time, and over time. It'll take years, won't it, really, to get that sense. And so, yeah, mentoring can be a helpful relationship, bit of mentoring with your meditation practice, for example. So it's not that they're not unhelpful, but actually what's being not to confuse that with what the teacher, the guru, personal teacher is really about. Maybe I'll just thanks very much for your questions. Maybe I'll just carry on a little bit and to finish off. Yeah, well, I partly because it's Artapriya's birthday, I sort of wanted to celebrate him, rejoice in him, appreciate him a bit as well. So perhaps it's like a story, in a way, of how this sort of relationship can just sort of grow out of engaging in a culture of friendship in quite an ordinary sort of human way, just being friends or befriending each other, engaging in that sort of way. I first met Artapriya at Padmaloka Men's Retreat Centre. First retreat I was on there, I think, or a week-long retreat anyway. We've been there a few days, and I was starting to feel a little bit sort of glum, a little bit like everybody knew everybody, and I didn't. I was starting to feel a little bit kind of lonely and trying not to show it. And I was just hanging out in the lounge, and Artapriya just very, very he sort of saw straight through kind of what was going on, just very friendly, just sort of it's one of the very evident qualities of Artapriya is he sort of seems like your friend before you've even kind of, in the first conversation. Like, how does he do that? But I was really, really struck by it. Such a friendly man, and able to sort of get into a kind of intimacy of contact, connection with you, to sort of, in that moment, I was sort of slightly trying to show that I was fine. I'm fine. But he was able to sort of just be a friend in that moment. And as I got to, and then I'd see Artapriya when I went on retreats, and I was just sort of, again, it was the incidental stuff, just hanging out with Artapriya. I just struck by how alive he was, just really, really emotionally engaged with people. He's got such a keen love of people. With the Dharma, like really real sort of sense of desire to sort of deepen his understanding of the Dharma, and he just loved the Dharma life, just this sense of joy actually. That was what was communicated. I couldn't quite make sense of it, but he said, you know, just this kind of joy in practicing the Dharma life that I was very, very taken with, because I couldn't quite account for it. I was meditating as well, but you know, where does that sort of joy kind of come from? And actually, it's taken me years to understand that joy. I don't think I even probably quite sort of articulated to myself that I didn't understand at the time. But years later, I sort of realized that one thing that I was very attracted to in Arthur Priya's life was he was a disciple. He was a disciple. So he loved his teacher, and he loved sort of being a disciple of his teacher. It was a particular moment when he was just leaving the room. I lived with him for 20 years, a Buddhist community, and he was just leaving the room, and he just said something about, I can't even remember the content of it, but about his teacher. He just sort of, you could just see, suddenly, it just sort of went in. I could just see the joy that he has to have a teacher, to have found a teacher, someone who he knows is on a higher level of consciousness than him. And somehow that transmitted to me and sort of sparked in me something of the joy, actually, of having a teacher. So just out of that sort of culture of friendship, something more, certainly for me, has emerged with Arthur Priya. I definitely feel like Arthur Priya is my teacher, but not in that. He's taught me all sorts of stuff. He's helped me solve problems. He's been a substitute father figure, which was needed, you know, at the young age of 20. But there's something of that relationship that Sangharakshita evokes that goes beyond all that, which is infinitely more valuable. I just feel so grateful to have sort of met someone who I definitely feel confident that he's living on a higher level of consciousness than mine own. Yeah. And oddly, I would say, I think that the gift of that is that you can only really be yourself if you, in a way, have a teacher, in the sense that you've worked out where they are, so you know where you are. It's actually liberating rather than sort of a demotion. It's actually kind of liberating. Great. I was going to say a little bit more about one of the things is that the guru is not on the list, is being perfect. So that's not what a guru is about. Jnanavacha talks of this in terms of the need. I think I haven't fully answered your question, but Marianne's aware of it. One of the things is I think probably that this sort of relationship is one of the most demanding, actually. It's one of the most demanding relationships in life. Most, you know, I sort of felt I've had to learn how to relate actually to a teacher. How do you actually engage with that? It takes quite a lot of psychological integration. But Jnanavacha talks in terms of needing to balance the receptive. You need to be receptive to a teacher, but also the critical, sort of critical thinking faculty as well. And that's not just to sort of suss out the teacher, though of course you do need to suss out a teacher. It's actually to kind of learn from the teacher. So I just finished with this quote from Sangharakshita about this area. So he says, "We do the great individual a disservice if, seeing their qualities, we overlook their weaknesses, which are testament to their humanity. But we do ourselves a disservice if, seeing their weaknesses, we overlook their qualities. Isn't that brilliant? I'll say that again. We do the great individual a disservice if, seeing their qualities, we overlook their weaknesses, which are testament to their humanity. But we do ourselves a disservice if, seeing their weaknesses, we overlook their qualities. So that's the great challenge of the teacher. We need to hold the whole lot of the teacher, and that's why the teacher needs to just be themselves, and you need to be yourself, so that actually we can learn from the whole lot, the human weaknesses, which are testament to the humanity of the teacher. That's the challenge, I think. But don't worry about that. That's something for later. All we need to do now is just engage with friendship, engage in a culture of friendship, and that will all sort of emerge and take care of itself.